Hey book lovers, Kaylee here, and welcome back to the Enchanted Library. And today's video is my first haul of 2021. There is going to be a part 2 of this coming up in the next couple of weeks because I did a little bit of ordering on Christmas and Boxing Day, and the books are finally arriving. With everything going on in the world right now, it has taken a very long time for me to actually get these books. So this book haul is going to be everything that I got from chapters Indigo, and the next book haul you see will be everything that I got from the book Depository. So without further ado, let's get into the books. The first book I have here is actually my most recently received book, and I ended up using it for a prompt for Medievalathon, so I have already read this book. But it is The Immorality Engine, and that's by George Mann, and it is the third book in the Newbery and Hobbs mystery series, or I guess investigation series. This book follows the adventures of Maurice Newbery and Veronica Hobbs, and they're essentially solving mysteries in this alternate universe, Victorian England steampunk realm. And I love steampunk, and it is so hard for me to find books that actually do steampunk well, and I think that's why I'm gravitating so much to this series, is because George Mann seems to be able to write steampunk in a way where it's not hitting you over the head, but it has all of the trappings and all of like the things that you expect from steampunk. So this series I have been so excited for. It's actually also part of my catch-up series, which a few of the books that you'll see here are part of that. So keep an eye out for me talking more about this book in the coming months. But in this one in particular, Hobbs and Newbery, they end up coming across doppelgangers and murders and subterfuge and a plot against the crown, and it's just, there's so much that happens in these books. They pack a punch. I absolutely adore them. Next up, we have a historical rom-com romance book, and that is A Lady's Guide to Mischief and Mayhem by Amanda Collins. I have never read anything by Amanda Collins, but this book really stood out to me. I mean, the cover is just so adorable, but also it is set in 1865 England, and we have a newspaper columnist who ends up wanting to write about these crimes that are happening, and she keeps getting in the way of like the investigator who's in charge of it, and their paths just keep crossing, they keep butting heads, and eventually they find that they might be able to solve this case together. I love it. I feel like there's a bit of a theme happening with quite a bit of my books this year, and it's all about this pairing of an investigator and a headstrong woman and historical fiction. So let's add more to it. This one is Singapore Sapphire. It's the first book in a Harriet Gordon mystery series by A.M. Stewart. This one just came up on like a reading list of historical mysteries, and I was just very intrigued because I've never read anything set in Singapore before, and this one just sounds amazing. So this one is set in Singapore in 1910, and sort of the tag here, it says early 20th century Singapore is a place where a person can disappear, and Harriet Gordon hopes to make a new life for herself there, leaving her tragic memories behind, but murders get in the way. I'm sold on it. Now let's get into one of my other genre loves, and that is fantasy. There is a series that I have been putting off for a very long time, and I really don't know why, because I love big books, I love fantasy, so why wouldn't I want to read this? But I did finally get my hands on the first book in the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks. So this one is The Black Prism, and I honestly don't know too much. It is a nice size book, so I don't know too much about everything that goes into it. So as far as I understand it for this book, essentially everybody I believe has access to magic, and each strain of magic comes from a different light, but there is one main character in here who actually has access to all of these streams of light and all of these different versions of magic. But the kicker is that anytime you use your magic, it drains your life force. However, our main character doesn't have that happen. So I'm just interested to see more about how the magic system in this world works. And obviously it's a big fantasy book, so there's going to be a lot of political stuff going on, and I'm always here for that. This is the start, well, this is the second book in a series that I started probably about 3 or 4 years ago. I only ever read book 1, but I really need to finish it. And it is, I feel like, a beloved series, but that is the Invisible Library series by Genevieve Cogman. This is book 2, which is The Masked City. I know why I wasn't too keen to continue the series initially, but I feel like I have gotten past that and I can really enjoy this series for what it is. I really like the idea of having the two main characters being in a relationship, which isn't really the case with these books. So it kind of turned me off for a little bit, but I do really want to finish it. It has all of these different magical and fantastical elements, and you can basically hop from different places, and it's all about a magic library and librarians who work there who are trying to keep everything safe but also battling. There's a lot that happens in book one, and there's a lot that's set up for this series, so I am excited to get into it and finish it up because I think it is complete. If I remember correctly, I have to consult my document of series that I need to finish, but I really want to get through these, and the second book is a great place to start. I recently discovered a new author that I really enjoy, and that's Jennifer Robson. I read her book Somewhere in France last year, and I absolutely loved it, so I really wanted to get more of her books. And I ended up picking up one of her more recent ones, and that is Goodnight from London. It's based around the events of her grandmother during the war. I just think that that is amazing. And I'll just read from the flap here. So in summer of 1940, ambitious young American journalist Ruby Sutton gets her big break, the chance to report on the European war as a staff writer for Picture Weekly news magazine in London. It's an opportunity not only to prove herself, but also to start fresh in a city and country that know nothing of her humble origins. But life in besieged Britain tests Ruby in ways she never imagined. And it happens during the Blitz, and I don't think I've actually read anything that takes place during the Blitz, so I'm very interested in that. But also, Jennifer Robson, she just quickly became a favorite with Somewhere in France, and I can't wait to read more of her stuff. I read last year a book that I've been putting off for a while because I love Robin Hood, and any retellings of Robin Hood I'm very hesitant to get into, but I finally did pick up Robin Hood Demonsbane, and The Black Arrow was the first book, and I really enjoyed it, so I'm excited to finish, well, hopefully finish it this year. It is a trilogy. This is book 2, which I picked up, and it is The Two Torques. I don't really want to spoil anything again because this is the second book in a series, but just know that it is a fantastical reimagining of Robin Hood, covering multiple different POVs, like so many different POVs. You're not just set on Robin Hood, and I would say that even in book 1, he's probably one of the least POVs that you read from. So that was also a very interesting take, but I had so much fun with it. I have another book here that is going to finish a series for me once I read it, and that is Night of the Dragon by Julie Kagawa, and this is the third and final book in the Shadow of the Fox trilogy, which I absolutely adored. I read Shadow of the Fox when it came out, and I was just blown away. As I was reading it, I felt like I was reading an anime. Like I could picture an anime filming in my head, and it was just stunning. There was very little downtime. There were so many elements of the plot, and it just keeps escalating every single time. I have no idea how this book is going to end. Or this series, I should say, but I just want everyone to be happy, and I feel like everyone is set up to be devastated. So I don't know, we'll see how this goes. But the initial premise of this series is that you have a kitsune shapeshifter, so a fox girl shapeshifter, and she's basically raised by this religious group, and their whole premise is to protect this piece of the scroll, which will, if all of the pieces are put together, bring the kami dragon into being and grant a wish for like 1,000 years. But it's been about 1,000 years since the kami dragon came last, and everybody wants to get the piece of this scroll, so she ends up being brought together with one of these soldiers who's after the scroll, but he doesn't know that she has the scroll, and they're working together, and it's so good. And things happened in the second book that I'm still trying to figure out how it's all gonna work out. I won't have long to wait. So keep an eye out for my catch-up video where I talk more about this series and read through this book and give you my final thoughts. I'm very excited. And lastly, we have another book that's going to tie into my reading goals of 2021, to read more nonfiction. I do love nonfiction, but I just need to read more of it, and to read more Canadian. So I ended up picking up Extraordinary Canadians by Peter Mansbridge. This sounds so amazing. It's basically a bunch of essays and interviews and things with a handful of awesome Canadians. And it's not even like he's covering people who are super, super well known. He's covering the everyday person, and I love that idea. So I'm excited to read this one. It's not going to be too long of a read. It's got some pictures in it. I feel super Canadian about this one, and I think it's going to be a wonderful read and cannot wait to get to it. Alright, so those are all of the books for my very first book haul of 2021. I actually do really want to know, have you read any of those books? There's a couple in there that I feel like are pretty obscure, so if you have read them, please let me know in the comments down below. If there is a book in there that you really want me to get to first, also let me know, because there's just so many that it can be a little bit overwhelming, but I can't wait to get to all of them. And I will definitely be doing wrap-up videos, so then that way as I read through these you'll be able to get some of my opinions on them. If you do want to get full reviews as I read them, I am a bit behind in my review writing, I will say. But if you do want to read those, or if you are interested in my reviews, definitely be sure to check out my Goodreads or go onto my blog, so then that way you can read more in-depth thoughts about the books that I've read. Be sure to like this video if you are excited about any of these books that I picked up, because I sure am. And be sure to subscribe to my channel, hit that bell notification icon, so then that way you are aware anytime I post new videos. And until next time, keep reading.